So our first presenter is Mr. Ibarra from Public Works.
Let me make a couple of comments first to kind of, what I want to do the next two nights is kind of work through the processes. If you see items that you think need to be added or cut, we can mark them. We finally today got our year-end balances, so we'll plug those in tomorrow, Lindsay and I will, and kind of see what our cash carryover is going to be coming into for next year and make our estimates on that. It's very important. We have a couple areas that I'm real concerned about yet. One is not real concerned, debt service. Last year, we were able to lower the mill levy for debt service. Great thing. And we raised the mill levy in general fund. Great thing. But when you do that, you get kicked the next year because your motor vehicle tax, we have about $800,000 of vehicle taxes, maybe here over above that, of vehicle taxes that come in. And that's a lump sum. And you plug it in there, but it's now it's a percentage. So last year, if like 2 years ago, debt service was 48% of the total budget, of the total mill levy. So they got 48% of that motor vehicle tax. They dropped down to 32%. Good thing, but you get that extra ripple effect the following year then. On the general fund, it went up $100,000. So that's a good thing, that side. So it's those balances out. As I mentioned last night, our debt payments that are paid out of tax dollars are going to go down about $300,000 next year, which is a good thing because we're starting to do a debt service. Our debt service, as you know, is a package, and I always got to keep reminding myself because I've never dealt with anything like that, because we have bonds that some years you pay principal, some years you don't. And it was the whole package put together. We have other bonds that we haven't paid principal on yet for 10 years. They've been interest only. And it's all that package, and it was all done, and Mayor, you remember that from when you were on the commission then, with Jeff White. They had to do that because if not, they developed a annual debt service that was doable the way we were financing it. So we still got to keep that in mind. So that's a little moving part there. On first blush, I think we're in pretty good shape. Cash carryovers, the way they bleed in. We're real good on the water and wastewater, but that's another story itself. But I have to worry about the tax dollars and tax funds. So I think we have room, but, what I want to do is identify those areas, and then we come back in July and take a look at it here. We'll have better numbers and plug those in and see how they fall in place and maybe make some tweaks. What I'd like to do at the very end is, like we did last year, you have this much room left over, what do you want to do? So if you think of ideas along the way, keep those in mind because we may be able to plug them in down the road. My goal is, and I'm assuming the commission's is too, that our mill levy is going to come in at 48.1, or whatever it is, 48. Approximately. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing you have to remember this year that it's tough, is that the county clerk has said that there's three major tax
NRP?
No, not NRPs. No. There's three major businesses that are filed for.
Brown.
No, not the Brown, not the Black Store. They have filed for protest.
Okay.
One of them is Nash Church, where Orshland's used to be. Mm-hmm. I think that they should lose it for this 1 year. Rebecca feels that churches never lose because on January 1 of this year, there was a store in there. And there's always the value as of January 1. And I always tell the story that because I've been through a tornado before, but if you lose your house today, if a fire came and you lost your house today, you're paying property taxes on the value it was of January 1, this December, and next May. Your house is gone, you're still going to pay for it. Likewise, if on January 2nd next year, you had your piece of land, so it has a value of, $10,000, and the house fairy came in there and poof, you had a house genie, and you had a house that's worth $500,000, you don't pay a dime of property tax on it until nearly 2 years later. Its value as January 1. So if you have something built after that, so I think that, and I know Marriott has a protest, and I don't remember that motel.
I don't remember that.
But, so what that tells, like I mentioned in my letter, what that means is I think we just keep going forward with the valuation we have. If the valuation number drops from 175 million to 174 million, and if they all get, and that's what we're kind of looking at, if they all got approved, and I don't know if they all will, that means the mill levy will rise. We'll publish it as a 48-something estimate, But we don't levy mill levy, we levy tax dollars. We do the equation, of course, so everybody understands it. But if the valuation goes down, the mill levy will go up to equal the same amount of tax dollars. Likewise, and we've had years of that too, that the valuation goes up, probably won't this year because of the protests, the mill levy will actually go down. I've had it both happen. We had a couple of years here where when the tax statements went out, the county clerk didn't adjust those. So we had years when the valuation went down, the mill levy did not go up, so we actually took less tax dollars in because, and the state statute is very explicit, and I battled with the county a couple of years, and Calvin Popper agreed with me, and they got a change finally made now. So, you'll never see a mill levy. If we publish a mill levy at 48.1 in 30-year, 1 year of the city budget, it will never be 48.1 at November because valuation always moves. If the worst case scenario would happen, that $1 million gets wiped off, and I don't think that can happen. It probably won't happen. There might be pieces of that, but not all of it. You would see mill levy go from 48.1 to about 48.4. 3/10 of a tick, maybe less than that. So, and some say, well, budget for less. Well, if you did that, and it doesn't happen, and if you really need the money to operate your city, you have that going here. A mill, as I mentioned in my note, is worth about a couple thousand more than it was last year. So at 48 mills, we're talking about an additional $100 plus $1,000 that we could use. And that's fine. And I'm not embarrassed. Everybody says, the naysayers out there will always say, Alan, when the valuation goes up, you should lower your mill levy. Yeah, I don't disagree. But I also will base on the fact that this commission here has held mill levy in place. When valuation went down last year, we did not raise our mill levy. We let our tax dollars go down. So I think you can defend, doing that. You're not talking about big jumps. Again, I think it's all about passing sales tax this fall. You just cannot raise mill levy. We made a promise. I think we reiterated last night, and that sales tax. I mean, it better than I do. It's vital because if not, it'll spin things in a way we don't want to spin. Because if we get the sales tax renewed, we can get there. We'll make some major substantial in the next couple of years. From here on out, for the next few years, we're going to see $300,000 to $500,000 less each year have to pay in, because now we're starting to move in. Everything gets paid off. Our payments now become principal heavy more than interest heavy, and that's going to pay off. Depending on the markets next year, we'll have a chance to refinance. We jump over into utilities, and we'll talk about water and wastewater a little bit tonight. With the finance plan the city put in place back in 2014, I believe, with Ralph Patel's stay, you put in a plan that is covering our needs to replace the city. And I'll mention when Ray gets that part tonight here, I think we have, and Ray and I had the discussion, Ray, we got to get aggressive in water and wastewater in fixing this town up. About talking some $500,000 projects to fix water lines. So his people ain't chasing broken water lines all the time. Broken ones, new ones break too, by the way, but not as often. Right. That we put a plan in place, and the public has bought into it, that we got to fix up. We're getting ready for phase 2 and 3 of the water and wastewater projects. Those are going to be probably not bid out till next year. Don's meeting with us tomorrow, but it's just the whole KDC process just takes time, and that's fine. But on the first loan we took the loan out. We're going to leave $3 million of that loan on the table, which means that's $3 million less we have to pay back. We went ahead, and when I first got here, we were starting to get, when we got the loan, we actually could have went back and reimbursed the city, the water fund, the wastewater fund, for the money we used in design engineering. It was my decision not to, because we had plenty of cash, and the cash has continued to grow. By doing that, well, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, when we were supposed to start paying the loan, even though the project didn't get done because of Katie's hold and everything else, they says, do you want to wait paying it off, start your payments until it's all done? I go, no, let's make our payments right now, because we had the money and we're knocking off money. So we made payments. We're gonna reduce that amount in your book, in well, a page on our debts that we'll have some time. You'll see our amount just drop off. But the point is that 20-year loan or 30-year loan is probably going to be a 20-year loan, which is all good for the city and gets stuff paid for in this town. We have some small, we'll talk about a little more, we have some smaller loans in water and wastewater that Lindsay and I are going to take a look at recommending that, like a couple $100,000 loans, is get rid of them. You know, one of my goals is long-term is we use lease purchase for a lot of good reasons. I hate it. Because let's get the financial shipping out right. I mean, we're not there yet, and we need to use lease purchase, don't get me wrong. But the less we do it, the more money we can put, the less money we pay in interest, the more money we can put in projects for the good of the people. So, just some opening thoughts. Now we'll elaborate around. Okay. And Lindsay, guys, the pages numbers?
Yeah, page numbers are included on the side here as we go down. So the first page we'll be on is 25.
Mayor, Commissioners, first thing we're going to look at is the Street Department, which is on page 25. And under Personnel, if you look at the overall budget from 2020 to 2019, we have gone up a little bit, about $1,500. And that's basically because of medical contributions and workman's comp and Medicare, those type of things is what raised that up a little bit.
Just so you realize, you heard last night our health insurance rates have not gone up. What's tough about this town, probably more than any town I've worked in, is since I have a lot of militaries, they don't take our health insurance, which is fine. But I don't know who I'm going to hire next. If I hire a military spouse, they don't take health insurance. If I don't hire a military spouse, they do take health insurance, and we're not getting that game, of course. But so we sometimes over budget a little bit just to have a little cush.
So if you don't have any questions, we can move on to the commodities. Under the commodities, most of it stays pretty even till you turn to page 26. And when you go to page 26, under traffic signal parts, that has gone up roughly about $12,000. And the reason for that is I'm looking to redo our preemption devices. We have the old siren type preemption, and I'm looking to do 5 of them. I'm looking to do 6 in Washington. Franklin and 6th Street already has it in it. We just got to hook it up. Then I'm looking also at doing McFarland 77, Ashton 77, Golden Belt in 77, and Spring Valley in 77. Since the emergency vehicles got to go across that highway, and I feel that we need that there for the protection of our vehicles. So,
Are any of our streetlights LEDs?
not all of them.
We have some?
We have some. We've been changing them out. The city-owned black fixtures that we've got, as they burn out, instead of replacing those high-dollar ballasts, we've been taking the ballast, rewiring, and then putting LED lights in them. So we've been doing as a way to go to LED.
They work for us?
Uh-huh.
Any icing problems?
We haven't yet.
Okay.
So,
Some cities have had problems with icing on LEDs. They don't get warm enough to melt the ice off on the stoplight. Again, that's a minor problem, but
and we've got those shields on there, so it kind of helps
Okay.
on that.
okay.
Let's see. Went up a little in oil, antifreeze, and grease. And then we went down in the parts. We went from 104,000 to 100,000. Tools, we went up a little bit, and on that, we went up a couple thousand there. In the shop, we went up with a couple thousand, and most of that shop stuff is basically like the updating of our software equipment on to read the trucks, all that computerized equipment. We've got 2 scanners, and that's pretty costly to try to maintain it, keep everything up to what we have. So that's why that goes up. But that's split in between 4 different departments there.
Just so you realize on motor fuel, if you look back on that line there, we haven't spent that kind of money. I'm very adamant that not too many years ago, I saw $4 fuel. And I've always just maintained that in every budget I've done. And everything that gives us a little fallback if something is overspent. I don't go up, I don't go down. And you can say, well, Alan, we only spent $36,000 last year. I'm going, yeah, you're right. but I'm still gonna recommend 55 because it doesn't,
You
it
never
doesn't
know.
take,
Don't
it doesn't
take
take many
much.
people to change this, you know.
So under the commodities, we did go up roughly a little over $6,000, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Okay, if not, we'll go to contract services. And the biggest increase here would be under 0728 engineering services. We've gone from 28,000 in 2019 to 200,000, and that's due to, we don't have an engineering department, so we took the monies out of the engineering department and divvied it out between the streets and utility departments.
We're not spending any more.
You just took
We're
it
just
from,
putting to each fund. And we're still, you know, we basically have gone to no city engineer. We moved up over the last 3 years, and now we're getting things financial put in the right places with Lindsay here. But, and this may be changed yet, but, you know, I like our engineering setup right now, the way we're working things. We're getting a lot done, and I think for less total engineer dollars, because we always were spending the same amount of consulting engineering firm, because we had our costs too.
We're getting a lot more done just because they have more personnel. We're not hiring one or two people, we're hiring a whole
Well,
firm.
and you get and I'll Leon, we get a lot of synergies. They think of one project, we tie together and how we can do it more cost efficiently. I think it's working for us. And if he can bring the Bill grant home,
It's huge.
just saying, you know.
And then, again, under contract operations for the 2020 street maintenance, we put in 1.25 million. That way we can keep continuing improving the streets as we go throughout the years here. So we've gone up a little bit.
We upped that last year from 1.1 to 1.25, because there's other costs in there too, other than our annual year program. We do, remember, we got some costs next year, which I think we can eat out of special highway and FAF money. We're gonna have the match for Clink, or C-Clip, excuse me, C-Clip.
C-Clip. We're
We're gonna have, was it $400,000 match on CDBG on Spring Valley? If we get a grant for
Eisenhower Roundabout.
Eisenhower Roundabout, most of that will probably be pushed into '21, just because if you apply for a grant, we don't get notified till January. By the time they get done environmentals, it is what it is, what it is. I mean, we can complain all we want, but when you get $700,000 checks, they get to make the rules, and we'll work with that. Big one, I think that's the big ones.
Those are the big ones that we have right now.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll find out fairly shortly, we have C-Clip on,
On the roundabout.
Roundabout.
And on E6.
that should be,
Right, and then I got a note from KDOT. Sent me some preliminary plans on the Viaduct Bridge. They want a site inspection in April 2020, so they sent me some preliminary design to look at it. But they plan to close off Monroe that goes underneath the bridge portion of it. That way they can reduce the height of the bridge, get a better transition instead of how steep it is. So I would project if they did that, they might be ready for 2021 to put the new bridge on, start working on that, so.
when they do that, is there going to be cost to us?
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably I imagine it's probably 90/10, something like that. I'll see later, they haven't really delved out exactly on that.
I'm guessing it'll be later than 2021.
You think so?
Yeah, but if they're just starting to do the work now, I'm guessing 23, 24, but still, you know.
Right. So, that's in the future there, so we'll have all that clink area taken care of. So we've gone up a little bit as far as the commodities, if you have any questions. If not,
But again, remember that most of that is a transfer from somewhere else
right.
in the engineering.
And then,
Ray,
under the capital equipment, we put in another 400,000. That's to buy 2 additional new 5-yard dump trucks. They will be set up again to do the spreaders and snow plows. We put that in for this year. The bids are out for that, and we'll see where we go with that. But that way we can, as we're trying to rotate that stock out, we'll have something back up in case one of them go down. We'll be able to keep we'll be able to switch over, put the plow on, put the spreader on, and continue moving our operation that way through the snow season.
Ray had too many trucks get sick last winter.
So,
Get rid of them trucks.
I mean,
How old are they?
yeah.
two of them are 2000, one's in 1997, and the other one's in 1993.
That's not that old.
Classics.
Yes. Starting to rust out in the floorboards.
Did
We might have to some deal or-
Yeah, we bought, no, we didn't buy those back. We bought these other ones that Viola did not want to put the hydraulics for plows and spreaders. They said we didn't need them. And it's like, that's what put us in a bind. Had we bought, if those two trucks had been set up that way, we could help us out because those were 2007s, but we want to get rid of those out of stock first. We should be able to get a better price this year. And then next year, we'll rotate those other two out, the older ones. And that way, we've got always able to switch spreaders and plows on them.
So we need two.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep, we-
And if we get down to a pushing contest, maybe we can back off one, but
Right.
again, right now, I'm cool with it. Because we got to also have equipment that runs.
So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. Okay, then we'll move on to page 36.
As I mentioned before in utilities, just remember that that's a whole different game than the taxable funds.
Okay, under personnel, on page 36, under water distribution systems, 532. Again, we've gone up a little bit, and that's because of, again, the medical and the Medicare and Social Security, those things have gone up a little bit. So that's what caused that to rise a little bit. If we don't have any questions there, then we'll move on to the commodities. Commodities basically stay the same. Matter of fact, we went down about $1,000, so.
We've built a pretty good track record past few years since you guys took it over, so you kind of have a better handle on what costs are year to year.
Right. So if you don't have any questions there, we can move on to contract services. And if you go to page 38, again, our biggest increase there is in 0728 under engineering services. Again, we split all the funds out of the engineering department and split them equally between streets, water distribution, sewer collection. So that's how that's why that increased there to the 200,000.
Plus, if you heard my comment before about we got to do more water projects, it's going to take engineering too.
And then we went up in other services in 0749, we went up another 25,000, and that's to take care of any kind of work that outside contractors have to do on those lines that we're not capable of doing because we don't have the equipment. So that's
The
why that's
J&K
increased.
work and stuff like
Correct.
that. Which we're cheaper having them come in for one night with their equipment than to buy that same equipment and shoring and everything else. And
Yeah, because you did that already recently, haven't you? So, yeah.
Right,
anytime we go more than about 5 foot deep, they're
they're there. And they take care of the bigger lines of 16 because they got the equipment to take care of that 16 to 20 inch, those type of things. When we do have a major break on that, they help us out there, so. And then they also help us on bore jobs on services. We don't have a boring machine that can do what, the directional bore, we don't have that. We have a boring machine that's broke down right now, but it is non-directional, so you stick it in the ground, you don't know whether you're gonna come up or you're gonna go down or when you come at the other end, so. If you don't have any questions there, we'll move on to the capital equipment. And what we've done there under capital equipment, 62,000, and that's basically to buy another 1-ton dump truck. Again, that 1-ton dump truck will have the controls for the spreader and for the snow plow, so we can switch the 1-ton. One of the 1-tons in the street department go down, we'll grab that one, we can put the equipment on it and continue snow plowing.
That means we're going up to 3 dump trucks then?
They're different.
This one's a smaller one, it's a 1-ton unit
Okay.
versus the other were 5-yarders, so. you're talking, on those, you're talking over 33,000 pounds.
It's a big pickup truck.
Yeah, the one like you have now, right? Don't you have a 1-ton right now?
Yeah, we have 1 tons, we have 3 1-tons. That way, we'll be able to use it in case we need it. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
When all gets said and done, we may, again, since this is a budget, a utility fund, and I'm a believer of creating ability, a cash or budget authority, as long as you have the cash to back it. We'll probably raise the capital outlay number a little bit, just capital improvements, because we want to get more aggressive. And again, we have the cash. Don't, you know, we're up to almost $10 million of cash in water. And the whole idea was to get projects done, and it's time.
All right, if we don't have any more questions, then we will go to wastewater, which is on page 42. And that'd be under Department 540. And again, that's gone up because of, again, your medical and short-term and those type of things have made that go up. If you have any questions there, we'll go to commodities.
Can I ask a question? Because you said it twice, a couple times now, and maybe Alan can clarify it. When you say the medical went up, I thought our medical stayed the,
That's where he's talking about, they talked about
Because
that we
we're
have
replacing
to
employees, it's a cush.
budget, because we don't know if they're gonna be, if
Yeah, I
they're
never
gonna
know.
take the
We
benefit
hire
or
an
not.
employee, if he's going to take health insurance or not.
okay, that's, okay. That's,
We just never
wanna
know.
make sure I understood that, because I knew our medical didn't go up, but yet you said it went up a couple times.
Well, I don't see where, hang on, let me go.
Switch it with Phyllis.
Hey, Alan,
Yeah.
I have this list that you want, do you want me to pass this out?
Which one's that?
This is the one where Ray's splitting it between
Yeah,
departments.
why would I do it? They have it.
Okay.
Ray has a lot of things that, Public Works includes streets, basically, so the taxable fund, and then you have water, wastewater, stormwater, trash. I think I got it all. Yeah. So a lot of times he'll buy stuff, he'll pay for a fourth out of each one. We've always talked about it in the past, that way you don't get confused. Or third, depending on the use.
Like on a mini excavator, you'll see where it's a third, and that's because the sanitation department doesn't need to get many, so that's divided between streets, water distribution, sewer collection. So you can see where that, why that's.
Tell
a
me about
third.
your new roof.
The new roof on the building there, on our shop, we've got holes all over it. So what we're gonna do is put a new roof on. Basically, the roof, we're not taking off the old metal. They'll come in and put new insulation between there, and then put a layer across the top, and then put that other type of coating, where you see the elastomeric type coating, that's what they'll put on top of it. So that'll save a bunch that way, so we're not taking off the old and having to worry about the insulation and everything else underneath there. So, then you can see we have GPS units, we share, we've got 20, about 30 of them on all the vehicles. Basically, it's for us to know, in case somebody calls and says, we did something like your truck did this, matter of fact, a good case in point is David Walker called me, said our sanitation truck hit his mailbox and knocked a stone out. Well, then I went on, looked on our GPS, and I go, David, we weren't even around that area. So he comes to find out it was one of the landscape contractors that was snow plowing, and he's the one that did it. So those things help us by being able to protect the crews as well. So, I know it's a little bit expensive, but I think it's good. And then also this will help us as far as snow plowing. We'll be able to tell which truck is where, and then if I have to divvy a truck out to a certain location, I can find the one closest to that location instead of sending somebody else from way across town and coming over. So it'll be more efficient for us to do those things.
Sounds good.
Okay. For the wastewater reserve collection there, again, we talked about salaries. If If you don't have questions there, we'll go down to commodities. The commodities have gone up a little bit. Some of that has been in like operational supplies and parts for vehicles, those type of things. Where as we buy those parts, some of that increases because of some of the pricing on metal and things like that.
The chemical costs gone up because we're doing new processes out there with all the upgrades we've had to do,
That falls under,
That'd be carry.
EPA stuff probably.
Right.
that fall under the plant. This is distribution here,
Mine would be more,
collection.
mine would be more for like the lift stations. You
Okay.
got those areas like around on Ash Street and then where we've got all that grease. So that becomes an issue with us. And so that's what those type of chemicals are for us. If you don't have any questions there, we can go on to the contract services. And then again, the major hit here would be under the engineering services, where we went from 25,000 to 75,000.
And that may need to go higher again. We're probably we're a little further away from doing some water distribution updates. Next year is our last year with ACE.
Yeah, next year's our last year.
So by that time, Ray will have camera of every line in town. The next step is now to identify lines, either replace or to reline.
Right.
And relining in sewer lines is probably more preferred because you don't have to dig them up. And lining is kind of cool. You put the rubber in there and blows up and cut little holes in, and you get the same product without the cost of tearing it all out. So we're probably a little further away from doing some major work in distribution, just because he's finishing that phase first.
And you can see where those increases are in 0749 and other services. That's where ACE is in there. We went from 430,000 to 500,000. You've got, those ACE would be in there as part of the sewer cleaning for the last segment of it. Also Dukes for root control. They'll do some of that root control for us. And as Alan was saying, like in the along Thompson Drive, that sewer line's in the back in that ravine, and we've got a lot of trees back there. So you got root intrusion from there. And instead of using that root control, that would be when we would take that liner and line that pipe with that, so you wouldn't get any intrusion from roots.
Because they're not going to be able to penetrate that liner.
No, it won't penetrate that liner, so that's good. It's one piece as it goes in.
Roots do not penetrate the pipe. They penetrate at the joints.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't have a joint anymore. Your joint's out here, and your liner, other than where you cut into,
Right.
you're 1,000 feet without a joint. Whereas right now you have a joint every 30, 20, 30?
At least 20 feet.
20 feet. You have a joint every 20. That's where the roots, they take the route of least resistance to reach water. And so you have a liner through there. It's changed the game, of course. So now you have 1,000 foot with no joints, whereas now you got basically 50 joints through there. And Ray's on the right program.
But that's basically where those increases are in the contract services for sewer collection. If you don't have any questions, then under capital, you see 65,000, and that's for a brand-new sewer van for our sewer camera. We're using an old 1992 ambulance from the fire department, and it's pretty well shot, so it's time to move on to a better piece of equipment.
I've been on here so many years, yet I still hear the same things every year. But, this truck is 100 years old, and then it's just funny. I would think by now we would have had all new everything. It just
Someday,
blows
sir.
me away.
Someday, sir, when we get the money in place.
It's just funny.
We just
By the
got to
time
make do with what we have.
We get them all updated, they'll be going, oh, this one's super old. It's a
This one's 4 years old. We just can't hardly run anymore.
What's funny in-house is we'll get a person that says they want to replace a 5-year-old truck, and then I hear Ray and Ed come in and talk to me and going like, oh no, if it has a 2 on the front end, we probably wouldn't talk about it,
Corvair fire truck we have here, and
Yeah, 19, maybe we'll talk.
All right, if you don't have any questions, we'll move on to the next department, which would be stormwater And that'd be number 51.
On the utility operations with the Viola stuff, we'll have the contract from them, we'll plug it all in there. You do realize that our contract with Viola ends the end of next year, we'll talk about options down the road.
It's actually 48, I think.
Oh, yeah, it is 48.
48, yeah.
My ball got. Thank you, Mayor. And that'd be under Department 619. And again, that's down a little bit, so that's not bad. We've got one person that's dedicated in the stormwater fund, and that's our street sweeper. So he's paid out of this fund here. And then under the commodities, we kept that the same. Nothing's changed there. And then contract services, that's gone up a little bit. Again, engineering services went from 73 to 150,000. And other than that, everything else has been the same.
Is that because of the Homer's Pond Dam or what?
That's part of that Homer's Pond Dam for the engineering
Right.
services to do that.
So I was thinking,
We finally have a pretty good cash balance in, we did the rate increase last summer, so it was just part of a year. Our stormwater carries about $800,000 in cash reserve now. But you got a Homer's Pond project that's gonna be $500,000. Faith Tabernacle project is probably gonna be $250,000. So you got two big projects staring at you. And then we got, like it or not, someday we're gonna have to address prices ravine south of Ed's building.
Right.
And that could be $1 million project.
Yeah, depending on how they want to do things.
But we also gotta protect the lime lagoons that are at the water plant to the south.
They're taking some geo readings out of that to see what kind of materials and stuff in there, and see if we can't grab some of that material that we have at the middle school, that stockpile back there, some of that, most of that's clay and rock, and maybe we can haul some of that in, get that down, put it down ourselves, and then build it up a little bit so we can, what's happening, most of that's silt, so it's just it's sloughing off the top of that bank, but if we can stabilize that bottom and get that up there, maybe we'll keep that from breaking down a little bit further, and then we'll figure out how they want to design that channel, whether we put a curve in that channel to slow the water, or whether we make that channel straight and make it go right into the river, so.
Now, some of that's been improved since we've had the pond at Helen Park also, correct?
Yeah, that has improved, because that slows a lot of water with Helen Park's holding, so that's helped quite a bit. But we could have had some pretty bad rains there when we had those heavy rains.
But as we look down the road, we have the funding in place now that I'm comfortable with it. We did have a discussion just about, when do we add a second street sweeper? A brand new one, we have two, but the only one really works well.
Right.
And Ray and I thought, man-wise and everything else, we're not ready yet. Not saying it ain't a possibility, maybe a year or two down the road yet, but we had that discussion.
Right.
Again, trying to fit everything into a package.
We'll try
I
to,
still think if we fix some alleys around this town, maybe we wouldn't need a street sweeper as soon as we think.
I'm gonna spend all my street money on alleys.
I mean, when you gotta use a bulldozer to clear the street out because there's so much stuff that washes out after every rain, I mean,
we're taking some looks at it, figure out what we can do. We've looked at doing the aprons into it, the entryways, see if we can't improve that back, so far back, and then seeing what we need to do as far as,
I mean, you got some great concrete guys, I mean,
yeah.
fix it once, it should be done.
The only thing we worry about is when we do that, if we make it, I guess the thing you're gonna have to worry about if you do pave it or whatever we do an alley, is what are expectations of the people when we do that? Or are they wanting us to now plow snow off off the alley, those
We
type
could
of things?
We just say, no, we're not doing that.
And then the other thing you gotta look at, depending on the grade, and if somebody doesn't keep the side with any kind of vegetation to hold the rains back, then you get rutting up underneath there, and then once you get rutting, it'll get up underneath that the pavement, and then it's gonna start breaking again, so those are things we gotta look at. Again, we'll talk with Call Valley, figure out what we need to do, and see if we can, what we can do to make it better. And then under stormwater for the leases, you can see that's for that street sweeper that we just bought, so that's the price on there for $52,466, so. If you don't have any questions, we can move on to special highway, which is 51.
That's pretty well money in, money out. We get about 650,000 a year special highway. Unfortunately, 300,000 that goes to debt service, so that leaves you 351 left. We'll put cash carryover. FV money, we kind of set it off to their fund over there well, but and that's been used to help do some of the other projects.
Right.
And FFE, we get about $250,000.
Yeah, pretty close to that.
Yeah. We did improve by quite a bit when Governor Collier reinstated only a 10% reduction versus a 25% cap that Brownback had put in. And I don't think that's going to change, but 10% I can live with. 25% was getting to the point, do we even want to do the federal funds exchange? But hopefully that's locked back in.
The good thing about the federal fund exchange, like Alan says, when we get that money, when we do projects, we don't have to follow the rules that most of them have. Like, if you grab that federal money, you got to do certain things, certain criteria. Like, you got to get an engineering firm to design it and do that and do this and do this. Where when we get it, we can get our own engineer. We don't have to follow their engineer, and we can design how we want to do it. So that saves us money.
And what we're doing right now is that just because we have to have our money spent by September 15th, we will actually use bills from a project that's being paid out of general fund. And then that money we get back, we set it off to the side totally,
Right.
Because we used to be able to accumulate at the state. Now we can't do it no more. Because when I first got here, we had 1.2 million sitting there that kind of got lost in the shuffle. We can't do that no more, which is fine. We can work around it. And, oh well.
Yeah, because the state said they didn't want to bank it anymore, so they said you got to use it. So we look at these projects that we design, because you can do it on any street project like design,
Engineering, yeah.
engineering design, and as whatever we pay out for that, we can, as long as I can prove that we did that, then we can get that money and put it in our banks,
Plenty of places to use it.
definitely. So if there's no questions under special highway, we can move to sanitation, which is 52, on page 52. Again, under personnel, that's gone up quite a bit there, 12,000 again. A lot of that's like the medical, and then we've got Social Security, those type of things are what caused that to go up a little bit. If you don't have questions there, we can move on to the commodities, and the commodities have gone up just a little bit, 5,000. And part of that is on the, look here. And that's probably in the,
Yeah, these are all the same.
I was looking at, wonder why it's,
Tools. Yeah, it's the same as the budget for 19, there's no change.
it's
Okay.
it's up a little bit, it's up by
Well,
5,000,
Tools, it's up in tools.
Yeah.
yeah. Again, that's because of the,
Sanitation's fine. I mean,
right, and that's because of the equipment and stuff that we use. And then under, you know, any questions there under contract services? That's gone up a little bit, and part of that, let me look here. Part of that is that building
Maintenance.
repair. We're looking to put a building out there for the sanitation to try to protect some of the carts and stuff. So. And if you don't have any questions, the capital equipment, we've gone from 230,000 to 400,000. We're looking to buy another sanitation truck and a pickup. So, and then I think we're looking to pay that in cash.
We'll pay it in cash. We have a $1.8 million balance in sanitation.
And we buy one sanitation
trash.
truck a year and just kind of cycle through them every 4 years,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And we got the funds. Just so everybody realizes, in July 1, we start the license fees, franchise fee, whatever you call it. That money goes into the general fund, though. It doesn't go sanitation, but we've done a good job of increasing the cash balance. And like I said, when you're talking cash balance, $1.8 billion, and that's what you want to try to do with all of our budgets, so that when trucks wear out or you get them, you have the money to buy them, don't have to use interest all the time. We're getting there.
And that 160 at the top of this, that's where we're paying ourselves franchise fee, if you will, the transfer.
That's
to the
transfer
general
fund,
fund.
yes. Which is closer to 10%.
Yep. Making that verbal.
Yeah.
I drove it home with you, okay?
If you don't have any questions, there's the last one that I have in my budget is the airport, and that would be on page 11. So under the airport, we have commodities, and part of that went up is under 0749. And that is anticipation of getting the FAA grant. We did, remember I came and presented to you about the environmental assessment. I just got the paperwork yesterday. They're accepting our grant, so we will get 89,000 plus to take care of that. It's a 90-10 grant, so we still have to pay 10% of it, but that'll offset that cost at 99,000 for the environmental assessment. And what we're looking to do is, again, looking for the obstructions, which would be the trees and those type of things, power lines, working again on that grant money that we have, because we've got banked, every year we bank, I'm thinking it's $150,000. It goes into the fund. And if you remember the last couple of years, you have donated our funds because we didn't use them. One was to Johnson County Airport, and I thought the other one was to Kobe.
Yeah.
And so if we don't use those funds, then they take those funds and they can use it anywhere they want unless we donate it like we did those last 2 years. So we're trying to use those funds and take care of some of these obstructions because that's part of the airport master plan. And so that's what we're trying to do there. So that's why that funding's in there.
Will that 89,000 grant offset the 80,000 that you have on there? Is that how that's gonna work?
That will do for the 2019. This will do 2020. That'll be the obstruction. So that's a whole
Yeah.
new ballgame there. We're talking, I think in that obstruction is like 550,000, and then it's a 90
Okay,
and
got
out of
it.
that,
Okay,
right.
Thank you.
And then the other thing that we will do in the airport, we will generate a little bit more revenue is from the Jet A fuel. We're about ready to get that process going. They've hooked up the pumps and everything, so got to get the electricity to it. Once I can do that, then I'll get the jet fuel there. So, and typically they use anywhere between 28,000 to 35,000 gallons a year. And so instead of getting a nickel flowage fee on that amount of money, which is basically about $1,500, we'll be making around $17,000 to $22,000 off that fuel sale. So,
Good.
Yep.
Rolling in.
and is there any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Public Works is in good hands, no doubt. Now he dresses well, too. We got working on the tie next year. We gotta get a little more colorful.
That's true.
We thought Ed was sick tonight, or Ray was sick tonight.
Do that?
Tie-in.
Oh.
New man in the hot seat.
Good evening,
Howdy.
Commissioners. We worked on our budget for And you want to start on page 13 with the EMS budget, unless you want to look at the revenue for the ambulance service, which would be on page 5 of the
The red book.
revenue book.
Blue book. Excuse me.
EMS services is, we are a revenue-based partially, where we try to bill the insurance companies for our transfers, our transports and our transfers. We're projecting with the same that we are similar to what we went for in 2019. Again, with the way the medical industry fluctuates, it's hard to nail down how much we're going to get from the different types of insurance. Especially with us, we're one of those agencies in the region that deal with what we call the Big Four, which is Medicare, Medicaid, VA, and TRICARE. And the billing situations with them change annually. So depending on how they change their billing rules, if they change their billing rules, with TRICARE and VA, it takes 6, 9, 12 months to get our payments. So, if you look at the bad debt, and on the top, the bad debt collections, that's what we're expecting to get from those that we have to send to collections. And then the intergovernmental is an estimate again on, because it all depends on what we take in on the revenue. So if we bring in more money for the ambulance service, then the county's portion is less, based on the agreement that we have that they pay 66% of what we do not collect. So if we collect more than 1.5 million from our revenue from the ambulance service, then those balances will adjust. The city's portion and the county's portions will be adjusted with that.
Do you expect the bad debt collections, it looks like so far this year, that's upticked, and that was a result from the software changes and that sort of thing last year? So do you expect to see that go higher than that 40,000, or hope to anyway?
This is our best guess, because, again, we don't know who's going to pay and who's not going to pay. We transport people, we set up billing with the patients, they can bring in $5, $10 a month to pay their bills, but there are those who just don't pay their bills and we have to send it off. They try to collect at a certain point, the state send it back to us and it's registered as a bad debt. So it fluctuates as well as it does with the insurance companies.
And my philosophy is we don't go up until we see about 2-3 year history.
Gotcha.
I'd rather have you tell me I was wrong, that I underestimated than I overestimated.
Gotcha. Well, it just looks like 2019 so far has been really good with that.
Yeah, and again, you give me 2 more years of that, then I may go, yeah, we'll push it up.
Okay.
Chief, if Medicaid expansion had occurred this year, even though the legislature ignored it, would that have helped your bottom line at all? I know it would have helped the hospital. Would it have helped you?
Yes. For the payments, it would have added about 2.5% to our payments. And if, again, with a super rural out in the west side of the state, that would have been a 10 to 15% increase. So if you're a little volunteer or a small ambulance in a small town, it would have really given you the funding. It would have really accelerated your funding.
What was the deal with that, Alan? You know why that got ignored this year? Does it hurt the hospital,
I
too?
can't say the words Democrat, Republican, but because you had, with a Democrat governor, you now had 2 far-right Republicans on the top end that said, we ain't gonna let it hit the floor and go for a vote until you get, there was 23 votes in the Senate for it, but it takes 4 votes to 27 to have a debate, I think it was, or a vote on it. And 27 didn't vote, so even though there was enough votes there, it was a political power play, and it was R's against D's, and it's happened the other way too, trust me. Ballot it out, you know. Now, maybe they'll come back next year and get something that they more want, but, you know, our representatives all here and senators all over for it, though Barker is not. Barker always votes against Medicaid expansion. He does not represent us, but he in the next neighboring community.
Because the internet sales didn't pass either. this year in the legislature, right? And that would have helped us a little bit too.
There's some more testing on that yet. We are, and we'll talk about revenue maybe next time or the following time, is our use special, what's that called?
Use tax.
Use tax. It's up a bunch. So we're catching more and more internet sales.
Keep moving.
Yep. If you're ready, we'll go to page 13 of the expenditures for EMS. As we look down the payroll expenditures, we're trying to balance out. Hopefully, this year we won't have a return of last year where we had 6 employees with surgeries for retirement, which threw our overtime budget completely out of whack. We do have 3 new employees on board, so hopefully our overtime expenditures will start reducing. If there are no questions, we'll start with commodities on the next page. You see there our activity in 2019. We had to replace 2 heating and air units at Station 1 that we did not know were going bad. So we had to do those repairs, which ran that money up. So hopefully we have them looking at the other units, but they say they're healthy and they're replacing the smaller parts, keep them running. But the units on top of the building, I think across the whole City Hall building, are probably getting up there in age. So in the future, we'll start looking at what we need to do there. If you look at the next line, we traditionally used gas and welding supplies for our oxygen, and Lindsay was kind enough to put in a medical oxygen line. So now, hopefully no one thinks we're buying acetylene and those other gases that we don't need. We just have oxygen.
It bothered me every day.
Computer hardware, Jim has been very gracious in giving us a good upgrade on our computers, so we're pretty much caught up, so next year we shouldn't have a lot of expenses there. And running down the list, we're trying to keep things on level for our operations. Parts and equipment we increased because our ambulance fleet we have 2 new trucks. We'll have one here in the middle of July, and we had one last year, but we still have 3 other trucks that are creeping that age cycle up. We had one this year that had to have the air conditioner system in the patient compartment completely replaced. And that was about a $2,000 project. So,
And as we get debt paid off, that's going to open more room for those things down the road. I mean, all debt, it's paid out of tax dollars.
if you look down towards the end there, we did put in money, $4,000 for protective gear. We try to split what we buy in replacing the personal protective equipment for the firefighters between the budgets. We're trying to stay on a 7 to 10 year cycle on replacing this gear. Some firefighters wear their gear out faster than others. Our younger guys especially, they're very aggressive. They get in there crawling around, tear the gear. We're just going to, they're one of the shifts that just catch a couple calls back to back, and that has a tendency to wear the gear a lot faster. So we're trying to maintain that and keep that going. Down through the other expenses for the contract services, advertising and printing. We do advertising and get brochures and things like that out to the public about different EMS events and medical events. We're going to try to do that more. Also, it's part of the advertising expense when we do have an opening. Our software, this is our reporting software. And as we've come along with the new requirements under HIPAA and Medicare, Medicaid, we've had to increase that amount that we pay for that software to meet those standards. And if I always recommend, if you really want to have a headache and not be able to sleep, take a HIPAA compliance class as a HIPAA officer. It doesn't do you any good. Repair and maintenance of communications equipment, that's our radios on our trucks and through that process. Medical expenses, if you'll look there, the reason why our medical expenses are so high is we did not keep up on the required inoculations for our people. So now we are moving through that process right now. Because we're an EMS service, we have requirements that we have to meet for the different shots that we've got to have for everything that we deal with. Tuberculosis checks and other inoculations that you have to have every 5 to 10 years. And we've not done it for about 4 or 5 years.
So you can expect that to go down probably next year then, or the following year for budget.
We're hoping.
Or having to catch up now.
We're working with Kanza on getting a program to where we get this to a reasonable amount. We reached out to the other agencies, and Kanza came in with the best price.
What about the hospital?
They were expensive. Apple, the local care center and all that, they were wanting almost $100 more per person that it
Give a
came out
shot.
to.
I think that needs an intervention call from you to the CEO. There's no reason that they shouldn't be cutting them a good rate. No reason.
The other thing by getting a good shot, taking care of employees is, it limits our liability on work comp down the road.
I'm not saying it doesn't need to be done. I'm just saying there's no reason that the hospital can't beat anybody else around for our people.
Then telephone, electric, gas, these are just our normal bills that we have. Again, a maintenance on equipment, parts, equipment repair, we're putting a little more in because our monitors are starting to age, so we're spending a little more on keeping them up to date. Then the infamous contract obligation and bad debt expense, not real money because we never see it, never touch it, never get it. This is the money we do not get from contractual insurance or payments or anything.
But remember, that is offset by the amount we bill is put into our income. So, in this way, auditors like it. If it was me, I would say we normally take in a net of $750,000 or $2 million or whatever the number would be. I'd put it in there. I wouldn't put, we take in $3 million, we have $1 million bad debt, and we have $2 million. But that's an audit thing, and I'm not going to win that one.
Then our travel and training expenses, we're bringing that down as our people are getting up to date with their training, but also now that I have a training officer, we actually have a program now through the people that we buy our medical supplies from. We have basically an accounting system for our medical supplies now. It's going to be based on barcoding. By doing this, they actually provide us with free training. And that so far, we've had about $15,000 in free training in Junction City for EMS personnel this year.
Good.
So and the program costs us the expense of the supplies, and I think it was $1,500 for the hardware. So it was a great deal. Our division EMS chief did it. He got on that, and also it's helping us reduce how much we order at one time. Instead of ordering 5 and 6 cases at a time, now we're able to monitor it. And just like with the pharmacy, with the UCAT machine, we are reducing what we're keeping in stock because we don't have to order it so much at one time. So if we get down to a box left, we order 2 boxes. And the computer automatically tracks that for us. So
There's a crossover to fire here, but is a reorganization they did last year where we took away the BCs, we only have 2 stations, and made them into a operations officer, training officer, and building and
Fire marshal.
Fire marshal.
fire marshal. Has been a rock star move. Good recommendation on the chief's part, and because he's now getting those areas taken care of, and we didn't spend any more money.
If you look at their contractual operations, that's our billing company, and we didn't get to do an audit for our Medicare, Medicaid, so we're going to try to do it next year. With all the Medicare HIPAA changes, we haven't been able to just call in that external audit that we're required to do. So, and we have 2 more years before anybody makes a bad phone call on us. But we do have to do that audit to make sure we're in compliance with all the HIPAA, Medicare, Medicaid regulations and rules. And Kelly's doing a great job. She keeps up with that. She's got about 5 or 6 6-inch binders that she keeps all that information lined up. So EMS equipment, if you look in the capital outlay, we're requesting $40,000 so that we can purchase ventilator units. We run into situations when we do transfers that the hospitals will not send their equipment with us anymore. Hospital policy. So our ventilators are not they can't do as much as we need to do for the patient in transport. So we're looking to buy 2 of them so that when we do have to transport a patient on a ventilator, we have the equipment that matches what the hospital has. So it's just a matter of putting them on our ventilator, moving them out to the truck. It'll be also with our ALS services, it will give us the opportunity to actually put someone on a ventilator, and also then that allows the medic to do other things. So it increases that patient care. So we're working on that. Communications equipment, right now we're piece by piece trying to replace our radios as we go along. Our handheld radios are aging, so we need to replace those. We've got a little encouraging news from FEMA, so I'm hoping to find out soon about the grant that we applied for through AFG. If we get approved for that, then it's a complete swap out for our department, and that will be phenomenal. Be phenomenal. New radios, communications equipment across the board for the whole department. So that would be a major upgrade for our department. The $50,000 in capital equipment that we're requesting is for training equipment. We have EMS and fire we have it in the fire budget too, but we have EMS equipment for training that is just old. Everything from an intubation that's got holes in the throat to all kinds of, we need to replace that equipment so that we can increase our training of our EMTs. We always leave $5,000 there for furniture, for bunks and chairs or things like that that we need throughout the year. The lease expense and purchase is the 2 ambulances, and I think our last payment on our defibrillators, if I'm not mistaken, or second to the last payment for the defibrillators that we lease purchased. So, and I think I said before, we're expecting the ambulance to be delivered in mid-July. They are really excited about that. Have any questions?
Your bottom line is about $27,000 difference.
It's not bad.
And we gotta be careful. I mean, county has a contract with us. Ever so often, they get this nutty idea that they should not contract us for the rest of the county. They should have somebody else come in. It'd be a mistake on their part, I believe, because when we do it better and cheaper, we provide them other stuff too. But have the contract with us. When we roll, a lot of times for an accident 5 miles out of town, we roll more as just an ambulance. And if they hire an ambulance service only, that's all it's going to roll. And frankly, if they ever want to do that, it'll be my recommendation then to tell, okay, you provide ambulance service in town too, and we'll get out of the business, and you run it all, and it will financially it'd wreck it. So I think we do a great job, but it always comes up because that number keeps going north. Before I got here, and even maybe before that even, we weren't billing the county according to our contract on ambulance service. We billed them for salaries, but we didn't bill them for KP&F. We didn't bill them for health insurance. We didn't bill for FICA, all those things. Now we are, and that jumped up, and there was a lot of, I remember when Mayor Ryan and they worked on that, but it jumped up. But it was the contract is the contract, though.
If you go back to page 5 of the revenues, we can look at the building and code inspections. February 4th, I took over the codes department, and as everyone knows, it's been a wild ride. But we are getting there. We are improving services, and we are improving things. One of the things, we pretty much held the line there on that. Our plan review and permit revenue will be very high this year. We just received the plans today for the new school. so those fees will be processed. So you'll see a very large revenue coming from that.
We are planning, as I know some of you got calls that said that we won't be able to do good inspection. I've instructed the chief to find some temporary help. I mean, we're gonna take in $150,000 probably in inspection, or 180.
Something like that.
180, and that we have a job to do and we're gonna do it. We've got some contracts, we're still working through that yet, and that we're gonna provide the code service that's needed for that building. They're paying for it, we're gonna bring the service. And there's some individuals out there, retireds, and that were building inspectors that could help us out. Because we don't have, I mean, that's a big building. And it's gonna, and Chief has been very adamant that he is not gonna stand in front of the TV tomorrow morning when a fire happens in there because we didn't follow codes, and I back him all the way.
For any, no questions on the revenue, if we go to page 18 in the expenditures for building and codes, no major changes to the salary portions, as we have no staff changes. When we get down into the commodities and expenses, we've made some adjustments, and we're looking at things as we go.
Say so, we'll drive us.
As the code department, there's a lot of things that they didn't have when I got there. They had one set of books for the whole office, and there's 5 people in the office. Each code inspector and each code enforcement officer need to have a set of codes that they can reference. So we're moving with on some online PDF documents and things like that everybody can, we buy one set and we can share it throughout the office with all 5. But also we're going to have at least 2 to 3 sets of the actual books that we can lay on the table and go through, because one of the things we don't have right now and we're working on is a way to view electronically the plans. Through this process with the school, we may have that opportunity to get a device that we can do that with, but right now, the plans come in on paper, and it's kind of hard to run between the computer, so we have to have those books at the desk. So when you have the plans laid out, you can open the code book up. And there's 19 code manuals that we deal with.
We may buy some of that equipment this year just because of the revenue we're gonna get. And we're gonna provide the service that we're getting paid for.
Agreed. It's good.
So we're looking at different things. That's where the increase for the books and supplies comes from, is maintaining those books.
How often do those change over?
When we change it, it's every 6 years. So, but right now, we only have, like right now, there's only, I think, well, now we have 2 or 3 sets of the 2012 now. So when we go to the 18, I would like to purchase 5 sets. And then also the PDF, so that when they're out on their tablet, they can pull it up.
She needs a set too.
Yeah, we have to, by ordinance, we have to supply the clerk with a set.
You adopt by code or by reference. She has to have a copy, but so that if any John Doe walks in, they go to city clerk and get a look at it.
Expect you to have them memorized also.
No pressure.
It's only 19,
No,
it's only
just-
19
All
manuals.
she has to do is hand it to him.
Yeah. Where's it at in there?
Light
Get a
reading.
bonus, though.
Go for it, Jimmy.
We are getting the code enforcement personnel uniforms, so we left the $600 in there for uniforms. There'll be golf shirts. We'll have the fire department patch and their name and what they are, either building inspections or code enforcement officer on there. It will gives them a little more unity as being part of the fire department.
Good.
Software maintenance, that's the new software that we're coming online. We're using the old Encode right now for all our permitting process, and Jim and Sarah have worked really hard on bringing this new software online. We're supposed to be able to start using it in September, so when we start doing our new licensing process, all that can be done. And we're looking at being in full swing in January once we get everybody in the office trained on it. Because our inspectors will be able to register their inspections online. When they do an inspection, they can have their tablet and they can make the notes of the inspections when they were there. So we have more of a time, date, stamp, signature from the occupants and those things all online, and we can email them to them instead of all the paper that we're hustling right now. We have one room full of file cabinets and files and papers, and we're trying to reduce that load. The regular telephone maintenance for repairing vehicles, all those are in there. Travel and training, as you see, we asked for an expense because our code enforcement and building officers have not had the opportunity or have not maintained their qualifications. So right now, what they're doing is they're doing webinar classes. They're about $49 to $60 a piece. They take a test at the end, and they're starting to get their credentialing back. There are some classes I would like to send them to so that they can not only learn more about the codes, but also network with the people who have been doing them and are current with them. I did send one to the Heartland of America Code Enforcement Officers Conference. He came back and he was just like, we have got to do this more. There is more information there than, and that's what they need. They need that networking to know that there are other people out there they can talk to and do their things, but also get their continuing ed hours as inspectors and code enforcement officers and stay up to date on what's going on in the industry. So that's why the increase was put in there. The dues is to pay for membership to those organizations, so we can get those updates and all those things that come across in the code enforcement world that are changing. If you look at capital equipment, we have a 2004 Chevrolet pickup. The bed is got potholes in it. It's the oldest truck that they have, and so we're looking at replacing that. And I think it'll get, if Public Works or Parks Recs needs a truck, they might be able to put a flatbed on it and use it for something. But for code enforcement, they spend a lot of time running from site to site, and this one has holes in it. So we're hoping to replace that with a newer truck so that they have to do, when they do abatements, it's for one of the code enforcement officers, when they do abatements, if it's a small abatement, they can throw it in the back of the truck or something like that. And then the interest and lease is the lease loan for the truck.
Are there any police vehicles going out of service that could be used for that?
They're not trucks, though.
Well, they're SUVs, I mean,
SUVs. Yeah, but they throw some pretty nasty stuff in the back.
just asking.
Good thought. Yeah. We could.
If you don't need all the seats back there, you take those out, you put in your rubber mat, and you're good. Something to think about.
Some of the things we abate, I wouldn't do that, sir. However,
just asking.
however, we have building inspectors.
We could turn in.
We can switch trucks.
Good thought.
We can do that. We can rotate trucks if we have
That
those.
may work.
Okay.
Back up under contract services, is it a goal to use that 40,000 in demolition fees every year to clean up? And if that number were higher, would that expedite some cleaning up some of these sites and these old abandoned structures that are around town and that sort of thing?
Our average demolition is $3,000 to $4,000. So right now, with the workload, we're doing pretty good now. As we've got 9 on the books right now, 3 that are in the process, and 6 coming to the board.
Might be worthwhile up another bit. We,
Is it worth having another 10 on there?
If we had another 10, we could do more.
remember the last couple of years, we hardly used any money in there, and that was one of my reasons why I made the change I did. And because I keep hearing this town needs to clean up, and you know, we had, and what did we spend last year?
Last year was only
Yeah.
4,200.
And so that's been one of my emphasis. I started pushing, and that's been one of my charges, and took it serious. So, you know, we're gonna have a debate on and what's gonna happen with the house that had meth in this weekend. And I don't know what our liability is on, and I got some, he got too. Where do we stand on that one? Do we have responsibility to clean it up? And I don't know. I mean, and initially I thought maybe we have to, and then Had a contact with Kansas City, Melissa in Kansas City, Unified Government down there today, and she says, tear down, why? And so we're just gonna wade through that a little bit there, but, I don't mind paying, if all property owners would do their responsibility, we wouldn't have this problem, but unfortunately they don't. But when they create it by doing something stupid, like making meth in the building, I got a problem with using public funds, but if we have to, of course. But
But yeah, if we were to increase that to 50, that's.
At least two more.
6 more houses.
2 or 3
two,
more.
three more
Or
houses.
3 more that we could over the,
Okay. We'll
I'm
make-
also wondering, you go back to try to recoup that money, the houses that we tore down over the years, have we been able to get anything back?
Very little. They'll let the property go to tax sale. And what happens at tax sale is, let's say there's 10,000 against or 5,000 against, because there'll be mowings against it too now, until it finally hits tax sale. And somebody's gonna walk in and offer $500, they'll sell it for 500. So we'll get whatever percent we get that. I mean, it's a cost of doing business. I mean, and unfortunately you can't,
It's not a moneymaker.
no. But I also believe what he's doing now may
needs to be
wake
done.
some people up too.
Yep.
Going like,
Yep.
he's serious, and that's fine.
any more questions on our code department? On page 23, start with the fire department. The first part there is the salaries, and again, we're trying to balance that out. Again, our high in 18 was the fact that 6 people had surgeries and 4 retired, so that's 10 people that we had to fill slots for.
And when retirements happen, when you don't budget for them, we had 2 last year, that had we had that extra pay out of all that sick leave and vacation.
Do you kind of take a survey of your more senior staff to see who's going to be checking out when?
Yes.
But we had the 2 surprises last year.
Yeah, I understand.
At this point, no one has come forward.
Okay.
We have 3 that are in the window.
Is that number correct? Because it looks like you're
We're in trouble.
nearly at budget for 2019 from what you had last year.
We had to let one individual go. He wasn't meeting the standards, and then we had 2 other openings to fill. And that's where that overtime
So
comes in.
fully staffed, that 85,000 numbers.
Should be good, fully
Okay.
staffed. We try to average 14 personnel on duty a day. That gives us 2 full 4-man engine companies, 2 ambulances, and 2 people on the aerial truck that also double as ambulance. And we can manage 3 to 4 calls when that happens, as long as we can maintain the 14-man staffing. So that gives us a flexibility with the ladder truck where they can flip back and forth.
Trust me, he's looking at it.
Okay.
If you want to go down to commodities, not a lot has changed in our commodities on that page. And down through the others, we've made some adjustments. If there are any questions. There, and I will. We'll go to the next set, which is contract services. The software and maintenance costs average about 13,000. We joined Ray with the GPS location of vehicles, and it gives us telemetry and those type of things that we need. When our crew went to Lawrence with the rescue truck, I can sit at my desk and see where they're at. So if they need something, we know exactly where they're at. We can take care of them. So that really helps out there. It also helps, as Ray said, when someone calls in and said, hey, your truck did this, and we look it up, and our truck wasn't even there. So those things can really help us out, and it's really helped us out a lot with the department on driver's training, skill assessment, those type of things. And we do have some pretty good drivers in the fire department, I have to say.
Good to know.
Let's see.
A little bit of a jump in the data processing, 714.
That would be with Jim,
Just the new software.
yes, is just software adjustments
Right.
and things that we have to do to maintain our system.
That is,
It's page 24.
yeah,
in the-
much.
It's,
Quite a-
On page 24?
Okay.
yeah, it was 9,200 in, and he's put in 9,200 again this year.
I guess I'm looking from 18 to 19. Anyway,
Yeah, so that's
Actual,
the
I get it,
activity, the
yeah.
actual activity, yeah.
There was an increase between 18 and 19
Right.
for the
The new one.
connection speed out at Fire Station 2.
On all, when you see the word computer IT, the department heads, only one person puts that number in for them. They don't put their own in, he drives it all, so we'll go through that tomorrow night.
Jim's fault, okay.
It's Jim's fault.
Down the list, we've pretty much maintained across. We did put a little more in for dues. We want to join a couple more mentoring organizations for our fire marshal and our investigators so that we can get some more training hours for free. $250 membership, and you can get a seminar for free. And we can get instructors to come to us and help our people maintain their skills. So it comes out to be a pretty good deal. Fire equipment, that's just our tools and loose equipment that we break on the fire ground and have to replace. Perfect example is recently we've had 2 pike poles and an axe broke at a fire. Those things happen. Those things happen. Capital equipment for $20,000, that is to help us with training for the fireside, to get by the equipment so that we can have the classes here and work on those things.
You're fine.
And then again, furniture for $5,000 on the fireside. Seeing that we have 16 people on shift, chairs, tables, kitchen tables, bunks, those type of things if we need to order something. Lockers. If a locker gets, we have some older lockers at Station 2. If we have to replace one because a door falls off or something, they're the metal ones and rivets just don't hold them tight. So we may, if we have to, that's all that's for. Any questions? And then
Page 55, not 85.
Yeah.
on the fire reserve,
Page 55, yeah.
55.
page 55. all the
I went to
way-
85 and I couldn't find it.
Okay. You see there the fire reserve fund?
Fire, we budget 2 mills of taxes for fire reserve. So they'll get $350,000 plus then they get their appropriate share of motor vehicle and all the motor vehicle stuff.
$15,000 for protective gear. Again, that's part of that replacement program. And if we hire someone new, we can buy them a set of turnout gear. Perfect example of the last 3 people that we hired. We have a young lady that we hired. She's shorter than Tammy. Well, you're about what, 5'2", 5'3"?
5'3".
Yeah, she's 5 flat. We hired another gentleman who's normal size.
It's a kind of a
6
range
foot.
there.
I think he's 6 foot, 175 pounds, and then we hired another gentleman that's 6'4".
Define normal.
She left.
Keeping turnout gear is impossible.
They have like a kid's section in the wardrobe.
Kids fire.
It's interesting when the guy comes to measure and he's looking, going, I don't think we have anything that fits. So, yeah, they have to take the measurements and they have to make the gear because I have one person that's 6'4" and I have one person that's 5 flat. So we get that whole range in the fire department. So, buying turnout gear is an experience. Operations Chief Wetlow has found out. I told him when he took over doing the uniforms, I said, just take your small victories and run with it. And a couple times he's come to me, he goes, I don't get it. I'm like, you'll never win when it comes to apparel. Just let it roll. Because no matter what you do, what you say is a large on you or extra large on another person is two different things.
Hospital gowns, one size fits no one.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, it's the same thing. So that's what that's there for. Then you have the neighborhood revitalization that we put money into. The 20,000 for fire equipment is for those rarity expenses if we have to go after something that we didn't plan. Say one of the Homatro extrication tool pumps breaks or one of the tools breaks, it gives us the money to go and do a replacement. And then the 50,000 in capital goes with the 20,000 in capital for the training, so that we can start building that process of creating a training facility for our firefighters.
What we'll probably do here, though, so you know, first of all, Chief came in and I probably challenged this budget more than I have any rest of them, and I said, either you cut it or I cut it. And one of my goals in Fire Equipment Reserve, we have a balance of about 70,000 in there. I don't like it. It needs to be closer to $1 million. The whole idea behind Fire Equipment Reserve is to have money when things go wacko. And we need to get it to $1 million, and my challenge is to try to get to $500,000 in 3 years. Then we'll work to the next step. I'm probably, however, going to budget as a capital item in there, and I won't let anybody use it unless something does break, because if we have, we're going to budget that $350,000 or $400,000 income. We'll budget it, but I'm not going to let them touch it if I can. We'll put it in there, but we'll put it as a capital item or as a reserve to aim for, just to give budget authority, so we don't have to go back and refund the budget, because things are going to break. But my goal is to be at $500,000 in 3 years as a reserve at the end of the year, so we can have money for when a fire trucks break. That way you can go. If you get to $1 million, unless the big ladder truck breaks, we can go buy a fire truck now. That's why the state created that fund.
Will an ambulance last 5 to 7 years?
On average, an ambulance will run, our ambulances right now are running, we have some that are running 12 and 15 years. The average is, for an ambulance, the average is 5 to 8 years of service, depending on how much we put it on the road.
And that's why I'm wondering if we should be projecting to buy an ambulance every other year for a while.
We should be good at this point with this ambulance for at least another year. We have,
Just like
What
I'm
you're
saying,
Yeah.
get one every other year.
Every
One
other year.
last year, not this year,
you get caught
next
up.
year.
But if you build your Fire Equipment Reserve can't be used for ambulances, right?
no, it can be used for,
Yeah, it can be used for EMS.
That's what I'm saying.
So by getting my cash balance up there, we're going to be covering that.
and
Same thing.
your aerials are supposed to have a 15 to 20 year lifespan, and your engines a 10 to 15 year. And right now, our 2 engines are at 6 years old.
It's like we're doing with trash trucks and other things too that we know are going to break down.
Yep.
And with the number of transfers from the hospital or Fort Riley or anything else, it's only going to go up.
It's continually, we're looking on transfers and EMS runs, we're looking at about a 1.5% increase every year so far, since I've been here. And our fire calls are still up around 1,900 a year. So we're busy. The guys over there, they're busy, and
Say we got to look at our numbers and start projecting 5, 10 years out.
that's what we're working on. That's what we're working on. And
Will this bigger, the Kenworth or whatever, the larger one that we have coming, will that last?
the mass casualty
Couple years.
ambulance, that's.
Oh, not that giant one.
Oh, the new ambulance, the Freightliner?
Yeah,
Those trucks, on the mileage, we can go further because they are made for that. They're made for up and down the highway. So our projection on that is hitting that 8-year mark. The Ford 550 should be close to a 7-8-year truck. We're going with heavier duty suspensions and bodies for that reason. We spend a lot of time, we're averaging probably a transfer to 2 transfers a day to KU, Wichita, Salina, Manhattan. So it's a lot of highway miles. And what we're looking at are vehicles that can do that. A lot of departments, you see a lot of EMS departments, they're dropping back to what they call the little sprinter ambulances. Those are the agencies that are lucky enough to be in a metro area to where they don't have to go up and down the interstate. But when you're doing 2-hour transfers one way, we need something that can, one, give the patient a comfortable ride, and two, take the ride. And, interstate highway travel for an ambulance, they're not designed for that.
Well, that's what I was wondering, if you need to have like city-type ambulances and then transfer ambulances.
That's difficult to do because we only have 2 ambulances fully staffed. And again, we do have that flex for the 3rd ambulance, so when one ambulance goes on transfer, our crews jump over. But we alternate between the stations because we don't have a ambulance that is assigned just transfer. We just don't have it. And we do call back, we put out saying, hey, guys, come back, take the transfer or stand by. We do that to cover the manpower issue.
Okay.
So we're highly flexible in how we try to get the mission done. It's just a luck of the draw. Sometimes we get 2-3 transfers backed up at one time. And, we got to wait for an ambulance to come back for us to do anything. Because I can't send 2 transfers out and have no ambulance in the city. Or just 1 ambulance in the city. It's just not.
Okay.
Especially with about 3,500 calls a year.
Is that it? Are we good? Yep. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Chief,
Should we plan every other year? No, we're good for one more year.
Pick up 7:45. No, how about a 7:45?
Yeah.
It's like, who's on first?
Good evening, Commission.
How we doing?
We'll be going through Parks and Rec budgets here. I think the first one is Building Maintenance 08 Fund. And on your packet, I guess it's on page 4. Really, I just kind of want to note on this, has really basically no changes. It's actually decreased a little bit in the total amount of due. Kind of where we started this is when building maintenance came over to the city of Junction City from Veolia Water. It's kind of hard to budget. And so over the past 5 years, our goal has been to get out, like Chief mentioned, a lot of those costs out to the building, out to the fire department, out to the police department, out to the parks department. So we're kind of getting a pretty good feel for what we're doing now. The dollars you do see in there, though, are basically for the municipal building and the Opera House. So, like I say, that's kind of a really not much changes there. Kind of just, runs a steady line. Any questions on that particular one?
Nope.
Okay, the next one in line is the Parks Department, number 10, I think that's on page 6. I've got a little something here I just wanted to share. I've kind of shared this in the past, but I ran the numbers again today, just to give you an idea of what kind of impact the new park has made to us out at 5th Street. On our paid reservations at that one shelter at the park, in 2018, we rented that shelter 21 times. It was paid for 21 times. And as of yesterday, for 2019, January to today, it's been rented 32 times. So just that improvement really changed things, the way that park's used. And so that changes our work a little bit too. So that's just, wanted to kind of share that with you guys. That's really a great thing going, and we're going to talk about maybe some improvements in there as we go on too, so. Really just want to kind of key on, as we talk through the budget this year, kind of a little bit about what's happening there with the park. We were able to add an additional about $14,000 in seasonal help this year, is what we've requested. Most of the other line items are kind of steady in par. We do have one of the 639 series the community has been asking for, and we're going to try to do some upgrades to our disc golf course at South Park. We're looking at replacing 9 of the disc golfs and actually adding tees to it. Right now, there's no set formal concrete tee, and kind of doing an upgrade to that. So we've asked for that as an improvement to South Park this year. And then, where do we go?
Before we leave, we had a discussion about, and this is one of those where we up the summer help, the part-time labor.
Yes.
We're getting close with the demands on the Parks Department, especially with the new playground. Maybe have to add additional personnel. I waited off this year, up this part-time a little bit because of all the other things in there. And again, that may be something we have to look at down the road.
I've even wondered about, with as much use as it gets, about having a concession stand or something like that out there. Something to think about.
Wait till later.
Okay. Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
There we go.
Well, at least we have another option.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody had an idea we think is going to work.
I'll give credit to Phyllis.
But yeah, along that same lines too, it's been a request of the quality play for all folks, is that this year or before next year, we get the spray park, and we can talk about that more in the pool, open that up to where it's just part of the park. It's no longer a pay for it as you go kind of thing, but we'll talk about that in the pool, and on what we're doing, trying to get that done.
And there's a good chance you're gonna see some more additions to the park this fall. They're trying to raise money to put a roof over the concrete pad that we had poured. And I really believe there's a push right now to add a additional pod into the kidney bean. A lot of requests for equipment for 1 to 3 year olds. And so,
Cages or,
A leash area.
just kidding, just kidding.
I've already volunteered to donate a swing already, so that's for kids and for parents.
Yeah, okay.
Check out the Facebook page.
And then just another thing I know, something we worked on last year and we're working on this year, we did budget for this year is, because it's worked out real good so far, is hiring a company to take care of East Chestnut, the islands and the roundabouts. We do have that in here. We want to continue that if we can going into the year. And then I know we'll talk about the Rayford Stadium here in a minute, Mr. Landis, but we budgeted $85,000 in our capital improvement. And Alan can kind of explain what some of that's for, but as far as the Parks Department, what we're looking for is we'd like to add an additional half-ton pickup truck at $30,000. And then at the,
Replacing
it's a 2004, and I don't want to say replacing, it is replacing, but almost adding. Because in the summer, because we're so heavy on seasonal help, if we have one truck break down, we're just almost out of business. And so I know you guys don't like to add, but it's adding. It would be an older truck that really would, once it reached a point where the cost to maintain it would be unfeasible, we'd probably dispose of it. But there's no real value in getting rid of it at that age now. Yeah, we have 2 2004s, 2 2006s, and 1 2013. That's our fleet as of now. But back on the capital, what we'd like to do this year is at Heritage Park, kind of make a little bit more of a splash and add a kind of a tree where the fountain is, a lighted tree that goes over the fountain. It'd be a 25-foot tall apparatus that would kind of be now a new focal point on the Christmas lights.
I was gonna say the summertime. What-
Christmas.
Christmas, I'm sorry. No, Christmas.
I got you. I saw that look.
Because the park's getting pretty full now at Christmas. I mean, it's looking pretty good. It's getting, when you go by, I'm hearing lots of comments. This year, we're not replacing, but we're continuing to fill out all the archways over the sidewalks. And so, once that gets in, we just need to focus on the center.
I had a conversation with Brett Deem last weekend about doing some type of a roof structure on the stage out there at Heritage Park that sits inside the current concrete columns and the beams. And he said there's a company that had to do it for some project he had designed recently, that they'd just have one of the reps come out and give us a bid for it, for what it would be. But I think our roof structure, what we talked about last year for that park, would be a really good thing. And I don't know what it is, but he said they weren't that much for the projects that he did recently. I mean, less than,
Yeah, you
10
don't
times.
set on the, it does not set on the, what we have now.
We don't, there's no
above it.
structural engineer around that knows what those things will support, because they're already concrete and they're, who knows what's inside of them.
Not
So
worried about the,
talking about posts that sit inside of those, metal posts, kind of like, you know, at
Go over the top
the
of
Chevy dealership they have out there with the metal posts that go up with the canopies over the top. The canopies could be taken down in the wintertime so that you could save them.
I thought we've needed that since the day it was built.
Right.
I remember asking Tom Neal, when they gonna put the roof on? He said they're not.
And that's the problem, because they don't know what that thing can support.
and everybody's worried about the lift more than they are the weight.
And I was always disappointed there was never a roof.
The pergola is nice. That's a nice addition that was put in there.
But you want to talk to Brett Deem and get the name of the rep that he's used.
Kind of a
Here's back
shade,
John
kind of,
York and his group was gonna, you remember that, Mayor?
probably something similar to
John
what we
York
got up
was
the pool.
do a volunteer thing, was gonna put one on there, and I don't know whatever happened to
But
it.
he was talking a material kind of like the shades.
Like we kind of have
shade
at the
we have
pool,
in
maybe.
in the pool.
I think that's what Landis is
Yeah,
talking about
that's
as
what,
well.
yeah. We're on the same page. We're
The canopy
on the same
cover.
discussion.
Yeah.
Right.
Shade sail, isn't that what it's called?
What?
Shade sail?
Yeah, you know, like,
That sounds good. Thank
Kind
you.
of looks like it.
For sure.
No idea.
Sorry, we're
That's a
tripping.
different idea of mounting it to the actual concrete, because we have, in the past, had looked at shade companies, and that was their concern too, as they came and looked at it. We never thought to mount it to the actual thing. Their thing was the lift. They
Right.
said, we're not gonna sell you one, because we don't
That's
know
what I'm
what the
saying,
lift
you
would
have
be.
posts inside the current columns, and then you don't even see it.
Well, and the cost of that's not that much, so if it doesn't
Much
work out in
less.
5 years, you walk away.
And they last a while. We've had them at the pool, and they're holding up well.
So what's the cost of your decoration that you want to look
It'd be
at?
$10,000.
10,000?
So 40 of that 80 would be spoken for already, that we'd want to use in the Parks Department. And then there's lots of other projects, whether at Playground Park or Raythorpe Stadium, that there's some money in there that we could do, some other things.
I'm not sure the fountain needs it, but, I mean, I think, well, let's keep it there, and then let's look at everything else, and let's prioritize
yeah.
what we think we need, so. I think it's a good idea, but let's see what else we have.
And we do, finally got some somewhat estimates on what to do at the, what I'll call the beer garden deck at Raythorpe Stadium, to go back and turn that into a composite deck instead of the wood material. Basically, even if you build a new composite deck, they're going to use wood posts and they're going to use wood floor joist. But to tear all the railing off and put composite down and get an aluminum powder-coated railing system in there on both those decks would be around about $58,000. And that's the city doing the tear out of it. That's just a budget estimate. That's not a quote, but, we had some people look at it. The two decks, if we wanted to look at maybe doing one deck, and that's not really making any modifications. That's just taking the existing floor plan as they are and turning them into composite.
Is that some company doing the install or us doing the install?
No, that's a local contractor doing the install.
Could we do it?
I don't know.
I mean, they sell those materials at Home Depot and other places, I mean,
Quite a project. Haven't really researched it.
it's all we just need the flooring done, you don't have to do anything with the,
The railing,
I don't think the railing needs to be touched, but-
right.
although it's probably not gonna look very good once we put the new stuff down with.
And next year we're
Right,
going,
you
oh, you need to do
replace the
railing.
carpet, and then your walls look bad, but. There's more to talk about.
Sure. Yeah, because there's like a total of 1,400 square foot on the deck by the bathroom, and then the other deck's like 1,800 square foot, so it comes to like $16.18 a square foot. You kind of put
When was
a
that beer
square foot
garden built?
price.
It was like
Probably
05,
2005 or, yeah.
04, 05.
or nearly.
Or-
Yeah.
Yeah, even just
Used
replacing the boards with screws, because they had nails in there like 5, 6 years ago, we
Mm-hmm.
replaced a lot of those, but
Yeah,
even
definitely.
just new
Yeah.
pressure-treated decking would probably be okay. Just now, maybe?
Well, we got every bit of 10, 12 years out of what we had.
It lasted quite a while, it just started to fail recently.
Right.
If we just keep it stained up, it should be okay. You can't stain it, the first year, right, till the
Oh, yeah, they don't
pressure-treated
want to
curing?
stain it until it cures if you
So
use
do that
treated
the
wood.
following year.
And it warps around, yeah.
That'll hold down the cost a lot,
Oh, definitely.
since we gotta do it's both areas there too. Okay,
Yeah. Okay, and then we also looked at, I know some of the brigade folks would like to see a little redesigning of we talked about redesigning of actually where the canopy is, and so we had a contractor look at maybe putting some kind of cabinets inside the center of it, because it's pretty wide, and they could store some of their stuff underneath there. It's just a thought. I know, nobody's given us any real direction, but Cecil is one of his concerns is having to take everything out of there every day and haul it over to that shed.
Yeah, but
and
it's
put it
also
back.
safety too,
Yeah.
I think it's good that it's put away overnight, honestly.
Sure. Okay. But that's kind of the majority of what we're wanting to do in the Parks Department.
What about the fencing in the outfield at Rayford? What do you think the condition of that is?
We annually replace boards. I think we put up 60-some boards this year.
Okay.
In new paint, and we just kind of monitor them as they go. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I noticed some of that chain link fence down at Sertoma is torn
We're
up.
aware of that, too. You notice it now that people are using the ball fields a lot.
Yeah.
You're down there a lot more.
Us too.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a
we'll
part that
address
was
it.
like, part of that chain link fence down there was kind of like laying off to the
Yeah.
side like that
Right.
down there, so.
But that's just routine
Just
maintenance things now
maintenance
that
stuff.
we're using it. So. Okay, any questions on the Parks Department?
And once we get through our numbers and from the budget, we can come back to some of these. Let's see where money falls. Right now, I'm pretty optimistic, but let's see where money falls.
Okay, we'll move on to the pool, and that's page 8. Flip to the end here real quick.
How's the wall working out?
We're not happy.
How was what?
The wall.
Climbing wall. We budgeted last year and we bought one section of climbing wall. We've got it assembled and got it out there. Prior to purchasing it, all their engineers, it doesn't mount right and we don't feel comfortable to get it mounted. Josh has been, for the last 2 weeks, emailing and on the phone with their engineers trying to figure out. They say, I could show you better, but the way the mounts are, we don't feel comfortable with it not falling into the pool the way it's designed. And so we're not going to install it until we feel comfortable, if that makes sense.
Good.
Do we need a local architect or something to work with us to,
Well, like I say, I think we're still working with the company and they haven't been real
We
good
paid
with
them?
us. And,
have we paid him yet?
oh, yeah, for one section.
On some of our projects like tennis court, Rayford and everything else, Ed is real good at making sure he gets the
Right,
product one.
right.
Right, I think we could, I mean, if this turns out, I mean, if this doesn't work out, I'm not afraid to give it back to them. I mean, even though we paid for it. If they didn't meet their end of the deal, if they can't satisfy our getting it mounted for us, even though we're doing the work. That makes sense.
Where are they out of?
Ridge Recreonics,
Spectrum's the company.
okay.
I'm not sure where they're out of.
Not sure. Yeah, there's no local, none around here that we know of, yeah.
Recreonics is where we bought it from.
We buy a lot of things from them, and they're a
Yeah,
good
they're-
company. It's just this particular one. I think what we learned is they use them for pools, but they're installed in other places, not just pools.
So it attaches like on the side wall of the pool? Or,
Actually, this is the pool deck,
Got a picture of it.
and
if you want me to
it's
show
a
it.
frame that goes up and then angles out over the pool, and then it has some bars that are to come around, like here, this is a concrete deck, and you mount some holes, and you
Right.
mount it down, and then the legs go in and anchor, not anchor, but just force against the pool.
you don't think that's sufficient?
You want me to show them a picture of what we do? I have a picture of it.
No, I mean, no, not that, we don't think it is. It just, leverage, it just doesn't look
So
right.
it wobbles a lot and,
We didn't even try to mount it. We set it there and held it there, and you can tell, how high is that, 8 foot tall? I mean,
12 foot
just
tall.
12 foot tall. The leverage is gonna pull these 4 bolts out of the, anchor bolts out of the concrete the way it's
Sounds like a
designed. You can just,
safety
I
issue.
mean, you know, how leverage works that way, and a kid will get up on top and doing that. It's just
right
not,
down.
just didn't, it's like, we're not gonna do it until we get their engineers out here.
Break packs and
How much we
walls.
pay for it?
You could fabricate
About
a,
How much?
7,200.
About 7,200.
Well, you're right on the Craig Paxton, but we want to do our due diligence with their engineers first before we
Yeah, so you don't
call.
void the warranty.
We've got some
Start
ideas
fabbing
on
it.
how we think we could make it feel secure, but until we hear from their company, we're not going to do anything, because then there's no way we could send it back if we modify it.
okay.
Okay.
I should have brought it up.
Yep, keep it moving,
Been by and looked at it here, so I should.
right.
have.
Really, no, what else are you kind of looking for this year, Josh? One thing that's, we kind of like doing, it's really not a huge amount, but we've started using life jackets in the pool and allowing people to bring their life jackets. That had been a trend that in the past, nobody allowed life jackets, so we're actually, we budgeted some money to get some additional life jackets, and I know we used some NPR funds this year to do that. You're not looking for any other additional upgrades to the pool, are you?
Just the fence and
Just
stuff.
the fence we talked about. If we do that, and we budgeted last year to get the spray park, knowing this may be coming, getting it totally automated. And we're just really close to getting that done, where you just go up and push a button, it kicks on and runs for 10 minutes. And so anybody in the, you know, in the park could just go over and say, I want to cool off, and push that button. And so we've got that part working now.
Tell them
And-
about your door in
The pool, and that's the next thing we looked at is, we have one pool on the east side of the concession stand, one door, that we'd like to take out and put a split door in with a window that would allow us to sell concessions to people outside the pool. That was the idea we had on that. It's really not that visible from the park, but I think over time, people would see it because it's on the east side of the
Well, it's a
building.
start to see if we have enough demand.
Well, you
catch
need
all.
a sign in the park so people know that they can come over there and do that.
Once you get them, yeah, going there.
A bit of a hike, but that's okay.
You bet, so. I think that was all you really had to do on the pool.
Fence,
That's
the
good,
door,
that's good.
Something.
and no changes.
Okay.
Like now.
Any other questions about the pool? Okay.
Well, I never know when I can ask a question or not, but I'm going to ask anyway. So we talked before about some water fountains, water bottle filling stations, maybe in the new park area.
I think that's all part of that, with the capital part that we talked with Alan on how we
Okay,
go with that.
that's
We're
in
meeting.
there.
Yes, that's all
And
part of
additional
that.
benches. I mean, I think more of the, I mean, with as much demand as there is to rent the structure out there, maybe we need to build a few more of our own pavilions out there, I mean, too. But I think, I'd like to see some covered benches, you know, with a little bit of shade out there for the parents out there watching their kids or grandkids or whatever. Because right now, there's what, 2, 3 benches? There's not that much. As much use as there is. Sorry?
I think they've added some more benches out there now.
Just mainly around the zip line. We haven't really added any more. We
Yeah,
don't have any
just-
on hand.
Something to think about. I mean, it's incredible what it's done
Great.
really to our community.
Keep
So
growing it, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a few more things to even move further on, so. Anyway, I don't know what those water fountain stations
And
or
that's kind of
whatever.
on our list of, you know, plans too. We're just kind of working with the quality of play for
Okay.
all people as they phase it through. We weren't.
Because we have water lines right there.
Yep, that's kind of the part of the long-term plan.
And what about grass out there? I mean, there's a lot of kind of dead areas out there, and, you know, what are we gonna do about that? Because we don't have, there's no sprinkler system or anything like that to keep it watered.
And again, I think that's in part of the long-term plan is to, you know, where we put that as opposed to new equipment or whatever, how do we place that? But that is part of the 5-year
Right.
plan is
Right or
irrigation
wrong.
systems and,
We have let quality play drive a lot of this. The result's been good so far. I mean,
I still think we need to have some involvement,
okay.
so.
okay.
It's great, what they're
Yeah.
doing is great, but I think we need to work
They have a
together.
lot of plans in there. They just may phase them a little different phase than we are at, so.
Okay,
Okay, all right. Skating rink.
Gotta remember, we got a lot of playground for $80,000 city money.
Sure, that's a good deal.
that's bang for the buck around.
No real request for the skating rink necessarily, do you, Josh? We discussed some issues with the roof, and I think Alan and I and Lindsay have talked at some
We'll
some
talk about the roof
ideas.
tomorrow night, but the roof on Spence City needs repair, $100 and some thousand. We feel, my recommendation is gonna be is take it out of our capital improvement that we use for like the city building and stuff like that, and we have some funds available there. Or can we look at, as looking at a product right now, we're gonna be probably putting on the
Animal control shelter.
animal shelter. It's a lot cheaper product that John Farrow puts on. It's gonna come to the urban meeting next month. If that works, it's a substantial savings, but Ed and I both agreed, try it on a small roof first, and
Sure.
if it works, then maybe go with it, so.
Of course, you may not know for a year or two if it really works for a
Probably
while,
won't rain anymore.
more than one
Well,
year.
and we may have to delay a little bit, I mean, there's,
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. But yeah, kind of like I said, same on Spence City, we're just kind of holding the line, not really asking for anything. We did have a roof in there, but that kind of got backed out.
How's the usage doing there?
A little bit down this year compared to the first year I took over. Not sure what the issue is with that, but
Well, summertime's always down.
yeah, we're dead in
I mean,
summer
it's,
and all.
but it's nice, everybody's at the pool, which is okay, but
Just wondering, do we need to advertise it a little bit more? Figure out a way to,
Church groups, different things like that.
get it out
Organizations.
that,
oh, Nick can talk about it at the golf.
Fort Riley.
Facebook is a very popular way to do stuff too, and I know we try to have a presence there.
Or even company nights,
Mm-hmm.
Foot Locker to have a
nights.
Foot Locker night out there or something, and
commission that
get
up.
families out. It's just something to think about.
Not as young and spry as Alan, I can't skate anymore.
that would be good once a year, but you put it on Facebook.
Golf course?
Golf course, now we got something to talk about. I'm gonna let you kind of tell them your stuff, you know it better than I do. Overall, we didn't really raise the budget, but we made a lot of changes.
Obviously, we changed personnel this year, so we kind of moved money around in part-time and salaries. So it kind of reflects the changes that we made. One of the big items on building maintenance repair is the retaining wall east of the clubhouse. Currently, it's a railroad tie retaining wall. It's starting to bow as that hillside's putting pressure on it, so something needs to be done before it collapses. So what we're looking at doing is putting a concrete retaining wall there. Basically, a contractor who pours basement footings would do the work. Tie that in around up to the clubhouse. Then the wood steps coming down would be replaced with concrete steps, or recap the concrete steps that are underneath that, and redo those flower beds coming down the steps too. So those are an eyesore and have been for years, so we can clean those up a little bit.
And then you've got your irrigation
Yeah,
control.
projected
Yeah.
cost on that?
I believe it was $15,000 is what we put in there for that. Yes.
Yep, that's where it's under, line item 715.
Mhm.
It's 15,000.
One of the other items, irrigation for the 2019 budget, you see we have 33,000 budgeted, and it goes down to 13,000. The reason for that is the lease purchase for the irrigation controllers will be coming your way this year yet. We moved that money down to the lease purchase line item. And 13,000 is a solid number we can hold at for our irrigation repair. This is just our daily repairs and upkeep of the maintenance of the system itself.
How are revenues tracking out there this year compared to
They're
last?
much better this year. We have a small sample size, but they're trending in the right direction. I believe with the team that we have in place and what we can offer and what we can continue to offer, it'll increase
Heard a lot of good comments by the community that plays out there about the changes that you guys have made, so
Good.
definitely a step in the right direction.
Good, thank you.
What else are you doing?
The Instaburger machine is also
Oh, yeah.
another item. That's $678, kitchen supplies. $3,200 out at the marina. I mean, you know what it is. It cooks a burger in less than a minute from raw. And if you haven't had one, I'd invite you to try one. They're delicious.
We're hungry right now. You got
Sounds
any?
good.
Right now, I mean, we just grill burgers as is, and this way, people make it. This isn't necessarily for the golf tournament itself. We would fire up the grill and grill a dozen burgers at a time. This is for that oddball 2 o'clock group that wants a hamburger. We can grill one up for them in less than a minute as they make the turn, or before they get to hit the round, or after the round.
Cool. And you said it's delicious, cooked in a minute?
Baked in a
It
minute.
is.
It is. It's amazing.
Express.
I've had those, they're good.
Express.
We don't have one now.
Is it made
No,
from
we don't.
beef?
Really?
Go there after we get done.
Express.
How many can you do at once?
2 patties at once. So there's different ways you can do it, whether it's a quarter pound, third pound, and how you sell it is up to you. I mean, a lot of times people do 2 quarter-pound patties and put them on one burger and sell them that way.
Do you buy the patties from them as well, or you can buy patties from anybody,
You
or?
buy raw ground beef, you can just in the logs,
You
and
just
then
ball it up.
Yep, ball it up yourself.
Have it in the cooler, and
Come on,
somebody
see
comes
this
in, you
thing
just
work.
Really?
There's one out at the state park. I haven't tried it, though.
I've tried them. They're good. Pretty neat.
The whole concession thing is, it's gonna grow.
Well, it's already a night and day better.
Yeah.
I mean, I was
That's great.
not happy with the way things were out there for many years.
It
This
looks,
should have been done quite a while ago.
it looks pretty friendly.
Much more inviting. With what's been done on the main floor looks tremendous. What about funds to do the stairs and the upstairs flooring so it all matches?
It'd be something we definitely need to do as soon as we can. I mean, a rough estimate, I think we're looking
We've
at,
got some numbers on some projects that, you know,
Yeah.
if the money's there, we could do. We've got some projects that we're
Talking
interested
to
in.
roughly
Daryl.
estimated about 15,000 or so to do the upstairs to match the downstairs, and that's retexturing the ceilings, paint, chair rail, flooring, everything we need upstairs.
Okay.
Put that to the side, because maybe we can hit that.
Yeah, I think that upstairs is kind of right now, a wasted space. I think if something's done to it, add the TVs up there, invite people up there after a round, and make it a place for them to stick around.
Yeah, I mean, people really like what's been dressed up downstairs. Now we need to get the upstairs to match. Daryl had an idea about a pavilion out there where number 10 tee box is, moving that over, taking some trees down.
Correct, yeah. The Friends of Rolling Meadows also want to help chip in on that fund. They've actually earmarked about $5,000 or $7,000 just for that project, so.
Public Works guys could help build it with you guys, and so we just have to buy materials and just do it.
Well, tell them about what we looked at.
We went over to Stag Hill and looked at their pavilion.
Right.
Jeff Rather actually sent me a link to, I don't want to say carport because you think carport and trashy, but it's basically a metal structure that for $16,000 they come and build it. And I think for that dollar amount, it sustains or can stand with a 170 mile per hour wind, so it's be perfect. But Stag Hill actually built a building similar and then added to it year after year. So they added stone pillars to the side of it, and then they added wind screens, fans, lights, things like that, year after year. So I think the main thing is just getting the initial structure up.
I think you could attract some more tournaments if you had something like that out there.
Absolutely.
With the grill area and all that kind of thing.
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
that'd help the course a lot.
Rough estimates, just concrete, we're looking at about $4,000 for a 40 by 60 pad. Moving the tee box is about $3,000 to $4,000 to move it to the east.
Would you just cut the sod that where the tee boxes are now, just take that and move it over?
Yeah, Yeah, the green, or the T-surround itself, we would buy sod for that, because trying to seed on a slope is a tough battle, and,
I don't know if
blue
you could just
fescue
use a
sod's
sod
cheap.
cutter and cut off what you have and then just take that and move it over to the new tee box.
The T-top, yes, the
Yes,
zoysia, yeah,
right.
we do that.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really good thing out there.
I agree.
You had one more thing on there, that was the main big ones
That's
we had.
really all we had.
If we could try to program, that's what the things would be like there, so, yeah. Okay,
Anybody else?
questions on golf? Thank you.
I think we're all ready for a burger.
Oh, should have brought us some.
1 minute.
You didn't even bring it out here to try it out. That's just wrong.
1 minute.
Okay.
Okay, the last one is the rec center.
Okay.
Donna, you coming up? Kind of just real quick up our lines. Pretty much holding the line on everything here. On our, of course, like all the other departments, we have the 2% cost of living. We did request for a slight increase in the manager's salary this year due to just comparing to the market and competitive. When we did the last salary study, that particular position, we weren't able to get it where we thought it needed to be. So that, there's a little additional in the salaries on that line. Other than that, you really don't have any increases in the other line items necessarily. Everything, that's kind of about the only increase we're looking at there.
Were some floors resurfaced out there last year? Was that 2 years ago?
Well, we were gonna get it done and it didn't get done.
Are you talking about the gym or the,
Yeah.
Oh, the floor, yeah, the gym floor was resurfaced and it looks great.
and it gets annual maintenance, just like we'll do at the city building every year.
Okay.
And then, but what she's talking about is we did try,
Yeah.
we're trying, in the multi-purpose room, to put to have classes in there to try to get like a vinyl type floor that's got a little more impact attenuation and you can still use it for putting tables and chairs on for eating on and stuff like that. And that's what we're trying to work on this year. We've got some dollars budgeted in this year's budget to do that.
Okay. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
To be continued.
Thanks, Donna.
Tomorrow, can I bring you burgers tomorrow?
1 minute. Minute burgers.
Shoot, every department's got
Make a
one.
motion.
Yeah,
Make a
exactly.
motion, we adjourn?
Second.
Favor? Aye.
Aye.
That were really